And welcome back to the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show. I am one of your hosts, Frank Horvath. Joined with me in studio is also Mr. Tim Kelly, the Tim Kelly. Tim, how are you doing on this fine day?
Fantabulous as always.
Fantabulous as always. So we have a lot of great things to talk with you guys about. First and foremost, if you guys have anything that you hear, anything that you want to talk with us about, anything that, if we spurred on some conversation, you like what we're saying, you disagree with what we're saying, whatever it may be, reach out to us. Let's have a conversation. We'd love to do it. You can best reach us by phone at 336-422-6859. That's 336-422-6859. Or at rac@apacheNC.com. That's rac@apacheNC.com. Look us up on the InstaFace, the Facebooks, all the different social media channels. That's Apache Solutions LLC. And as always, there's watch our previous shows. The best place to reach to do that right now is on the WSIC YouTube. All of our previous shows are on there. So go back, take a look, take a gander, see if there's anything out there that you can agree with, disagree with, and talk to us. Some of our best conversations that we've had are with people, our listeners, that had a thought. They have even spurred on entire shows, on themselves. So, feel free to reach out to us, talk to us. But before we do any more, we have a special announcement. Tim, what is our special announcement?
The special announcement today is this evening at the Book House in Winston-Salem at 6 p.m. David Yamani will be releasing his book titled Gun Curious. If you're not familiar with David, I would encourage you to go check him out. He runs a couple of Facebook pages and YouTube blogs and that type of thing. Gun Culture 2.0, I think, is what he's
blog,
coined for. Yeah. Check out his website on Gun Culture. David is actually a professor at Wake Forest University who teaches the sociology of guns. It's really, really interesting stuff. I got to participate in one of his webinars, actually, for the last 7 or 8 weeks or something like that. He was doing one webinar every week to kind of take you through what you would experience in his class at Wake Forest University. But anyhow, you need to go pick up his book. Again, it's called Gun Curious. It'll be happening tonight at 6 p.m. at the Book House in Winston-Salem. You're really going to want the book. You're really, really going to want the book. And the reason why you're going to want the book is because Apache Solutions is brought up in conversation, or not in conversation, in the book itself. More specifically, Frank Horvath is mentioned in the book. So you can call me the Tim Kelly all you want, but you're in a book, dude.
Yeah,
you're
in
a book.
It's bookworm Frank, right? I guess I'm living in a book now. I am now eternal. I am on print.
You made it.
Anywho, so all good things, all fun things. So yeah, definitely check out David Yamani's book tonight at the Book House in Winston-Salem at 6 p.m. We'll bring that up a couple more times because that's just that's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about David is, it's he's someone who, personally, politically, I don't necessarily agree with everything, but it doesn't matter. We have common ground. We can have intelligent conversations. We can kind of go back and forth, and there's there's nothing wrong with that. It's healthy, right? It's healthy to be able to have an opinion and to talk with somebody and maybe disagree or agree. It doesn't matter, and that's one of the really cool things about David is he's one of these people where you can have those types of conversations.
Right.
All right.
David actually he has a YouTube video out there, one specifically that I really, really appreciate, and I've shown and sent off to a lot of different people about, him coming into gun culture, like his introduction into gun culture and how it didn't happen until he was like in his 40s or something like that.
Yeah.
Much, much later on in life, because he just didn't grow up around guns, and oftentimes, people like you and I who did happen to grow up around firearms, and it was just kind of a way of life for us. you forget that other people may not have experienced that like we have.
Right.
And I think it's really important for us to pay attention to those perspectives. It's really, really important for us to pay attention to those perspectives because, David, even though he announces himself as a card-carrying liberal, still has, still appreciates the value of firearms so much that he has, gone into great depth on the social perspective of firearms and has now come to the conclusion that, to quote him, guns are normal and people that own guns are normal.
Right.
Right. Normal people own guns.
Right.
That's the actual quote. But anyhow, but it's not viewed that way socially everywhere.
Right.
And not even in North Carolina. Not everybody agrees with that. And I'm interested as to why.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting about that is, you're absolutely right. It's not viewed everywhere. We have students that did not grow up around firearms that have come to us and started, taking classes and started, taking one-on-one private sessions, and that their opinion has completely changed.
Right.
And for the exact same reason, right? Culturally, it's different. It's different in different, regions of the different regions of the country. There's for various reasons, right? Different gun laws in different places. Different things for different people, and there's a lot of nuance in guns and how it's viewed culturally. So around here, right, around us, quickly, we can talk about the change in time, right, the changes that have happened over time.
Right.
Once upon a time, you used to see guns in back of pickup trucks.
Right.
You don't see that anymore.
Right.
Specifically when we start looking at schools and things like that, there at one time you had like hunter safety. At one time you had all these other curriculums and things like that.
It was required.
It was required. Yeah. And now that there's a big shift. Now that doesn't happen anymore.
Right. Right. And I think that has caused an issue socially for firearms in general, and keeping them or owning them, possessing them, it's created an issue as far as education goes. So now the education that our generation and the further generations are having to rely on is just a verbal. Coming down from grandpa or from dad or something like that.
Right.
That's how they're getting their education. Just through the house.
Right.
And we can't always rely on that. And so now there's a lot of, mistaken assumptions, that float around with, kids and younger generations.
Yeah.
Right. So, obviously when we start looking into gun control and having those conversations with folks, what we start to realize is a lot of people who are, just all about get rid of all guns. They're oftentimes having an emotional response to maybe a tragedy that has taken place, a school shooting or a church shooting or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they're just responding with, make it go away.
Right.
And I think that has a lot to do with how firearms have evolved within our culture, or the topic of firearms has evolved in our culture. And it's not necessarily for a good thing. I think we are seriously missing out on educating younger generations on guns.
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? And so the hard thing is, where do we draw the line? So I definitely understand the reasons, right? I understand that emotional knee-jerk reaction to some of these gun laws, right? Mm-hmm. Some of these reg fed laws and things like that. But it plays at a much deeper issue, and I think that's the piece that instead of just slapping a Band-Aid on it, why don't we try and figure out what the root cause?
Absolutely.
And that plays heavily into mental health. I think that's something that we're going to continue to talk about. So you're listening to the Responsible Armed Citizen Show, with Frank and Tim, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show. My name is Tim Kelly. With me, I have Frank Horvath, and we have been talking about everything revolving around the responsibly armed citizen. We've been talking about the social aspects of firearms. Before we go any further, I want to make sure I make that special announcement again, just for those of you that are just chiming in to the show. A special announcement that David Yamani will be releasing his book titled Gun Curious at the Book House in Winston-Salem tonight at 6 p.m. Make sure to be there and don't miss it. So in the last segment, we were talking about, how firearms are viewed socially. And Frank, you made a mention about this tying into mental health and some of the reasons why people view guns in a negative light. So you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, take a look at some of the most recent tragedies that we've had. We had up in Maine, we had that mass shooter. We've had, other instances where, the underlying problem is some sort of crisis, right? Some sort of mental health crisis, some sort of, personal crisis that's happening with the individual. And I'm not making an excuse for these, people who have done evil things, right? I'm not, that's not what I'm saying. But, for us to just say it's the gun's fault, right? It's this inanimate object that caused these problems, that caused, these horrible things that happen, I don't think is appropriate. Right. It's the same argument that's happened in, countries all over the world of, okay, let's just get rid of all the guns. And then what happens? Okay, well, there's more like violent crime that ends up happening because now you have sharp, pokey things that, are going after you, right? There's a lot of different things, a lot of different aspects that really tie into it. And honestly, I firmly believe that, there's been an uptick in, mental health distress, an uptick in mental health issues for various reasons. COVID isolated a lot of people.
Yeah, man.
We've seen a lot of, negative things come out of COVID. Now, that's been several years ago now, but we're still seeing the residual effects of that. People are more isolated. People aren't going and seeking the help that they need. There's a stigma that's associated with it. They're thinking that, at least in our area, near our communities, if I go see a shrink, they're going to take my guns. How many times have you heard that before?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I used to think that too.
Yeah. And again, the thing is, they're not wrong. Right. There's certain aspects of that, but seek active help.
Right.
Unfortunately, we see trauma all the time. We hear trauma in the news all the time. Just past couple of weeks, there's been some pretty significant things that happened here in Iredell County that revolve around a crisis of self, a mental health crisis, if you will. And it's not the gun's fault. It's the individual. The individual took action. The individual chose that. And there's different ways of looking at it. There's different conversations to be had. I'd love to hear more about, what you guys think. Love to hear more about, you, the listener, what your point of view is, what your standpoint is. Feel free to give us a call. That's 336-422-6859, 422-6859, and rac@apacheNC.com.
So you were talking about, if I go to see a shrink or something, or I go see, a counselor or something along those lines, they may take my gun. Well, yes, that's definitely a possibility if you're saying the things that are going to make them do that.
Right.
And I think one of the main issues that we run into in our culture in general, regardless of firearms or anything like that, regardless of mental health, I think one of the main problems that we run into as a society is taking responsibility for our own mental health.
Right.
And, a lot of people will use that as an excuse to keep from having to go and talk about their feelings to somebody or something along those lines. But, the people that are seriously concerned about having their firearms taken from them, there are other resources out there that you can use that can keep that from happening. Right? Like look into holdmyguns.org.
Yep.
If you look into holdmyguns.org, there's a tremendous opportunity for folks who are, having intrusive thoughts or, struggling with mental health and that type of thing. It's a tremendous opportunity for you to essentially save yourself from yourself,
right.
Number one, and number two, still be able to, preserve your constitutional rights. Take a look at it. If you or somebody else that is struggling with that, and that is their play is, I don't want them to take my guns. Well, introduce them to holdmyguns.org, and I'm sure you might be able to find your answer there.
And on the other hand, other side of that, don't be afraid to do something. Don't
right.
be afraid to say something, right? If you're the person who's on the outside looking in, you don't know what that individual's going through. But if they're throwing, if they're putting out indicators that they may do themselves or somebody else significant harm, call somebody about something. Crisis hotline is a speed dial on my phone, right? If you see something that potentially could, now I'm not saying it always is, but if you see something that potentially could be catastrophic for themselves or for somebody else, say something.
Right.
You don't want to be the one that's playing cop, especially
right.
if you're not, involved in that. But, at the same time, one visit may save somebody's life.
Right.
That's definitely, something that you can keep in your back pocket and, hopefully never use. Hopefully
right.
you never need that.
And talk about, mistaken assumptions and that type of thing. People often view those that go and seek counseling out to be like, oh, well, that person must be crazy, or I must be crazy if I have to go and see a counselor. And their view of what that crazy looks like, I don't know, sniffing wallpaper and,
eating glue. Oh, wait a minute. I do
something,
that anyway.
Something along those lines. They're not thinking about the dude that's having road rage issues, right? They're not thinking about, the guy that's struggling with, with anger or alcoholism or something along those lines. The everyday person that's just dealing with everyday problems. You don't have to be crazy to go and seek out help and get your mental health in check, right? You should be treating that as if the same as if you were going to the gym, right? And taking care of your physical health, right? You should be doing things to try and keep your mental health in check.
Yeah, and there's a lot of little things that you can do to help that, right? If you just feel like the world is overwhelming, right? It's just coming at you, man, take a mental health break.
Right.
Just do it. Yeah. I've done it. I love it. Just, go play some paintball or something like that. Get out of the house. Just go disappear for a little while, go be with friends, whatever that is, whatever, strikes your fancy, do it.
Wasn't too long ago you forced one of those mental health days on me.
And it goes full circles, right? So, I mean, there's for various reasons, maybe you just need to check out. Go check out. Go be with friends, go be with family, whatever that thing is, go play in the woods, whatever that thing for you that just helps calm you down, helps set your reset your frame of mind, reset you. Just go do it. Sometimes you need to do that, and it's hard to do that as an American. Work. That's what we want to do. That's kind of our focus. Often it's difficult to get away from that. So. Looking at, going back to our original topic, right? So, how firearms are viewed socially. We talked a little bit about, some of the negative on that. What about, firearms training? How is that viewed socially? Because, for us in the industry, it's easy to say, oh, it's great. This is what you need. But if you take a step out on the outside looking in, it could be a completely different perspective.
Yeah. And I think firearms in general socially can have all kinds of different things attached to it, like,
stigmas.
Stigmas. That if you own a gun, you must be crazy. Obviously, something that David Yamani's trying to dispel, right? Or if you're training. Right? If you're taking self-defense training involving a firearm or something like that, you must be paranoid, or you must be, we must be crazy. Maybe you run into the person that is, kind of. Well, here's for instance. Last weekend we were at the homeschooling conference, right? One of the more popular things that we heard from folks who would come by our booth and they would see our booth and say, "Oh, firearms training for the whole family. That's great. My kid needs it. My wife needs it, so on and so forth. But I'm good. I already have my concealed carry." Well, to me, that is a common stigma that there's so much more than just concealed carry.
Much more.
As we've stated 1,000 times on this show, there's so much more than just having your concealed carry. But for most people, that's just kind of the way things are around here.
Right.
All right. You go take a concealed carry course. Not enough coffee or too much coffee. Or you go take a concealed carry course, ominous dominus, you can protect yourself now. And that's just not how it works. That's just as closed-minded as thinking that, if we just get rid of all guns, all violence will go away.
Right.
Right.
All the concealed carry tells anybody else in the world is that you were able to, if the concealed carry class was taught correctly, right? If that was taught correctly, that you're able to satisfy the state's minimum standard.
Right.
Right. That's it.
Right.
That is by having that concealed carry, card in your pocket, you're saying I have met the state's minimum standard for to protect myself. That it is not enough. It is not enough. Immersing yourself in training, immersing yourself in how to handle threats, immersing yourself in identifying the potential altercations. Hopefully before they even happen. I mean, there's just so much that's wrapped up in it that 8 hours isn't going to teach you.
No.
Half the class is teaching laws governing deadly force, how to keep you out of jail. The rest of it is just can the student, can you as an individual, do you know how to handle a firearm safely? Again, if the class is taught correctly, yeah, sure. But more often than not, we see the opposite. We see it not being taught correctly.
So how do we dispel these mistaken assumptions for, I've already had my concealed carry, I'm good. How do we get rid of this mentality? Where does that start?
Yeah, I think that, it starts with the individual. We have to try and hold them to help the individual hold themselves to a particular standard. Right. So, we've set specific standards for what we believe our students should have. Certain metrics, for what we think, the responsibly armed citizen should be able to meet, right? Have a certain level of competence. But trying to convince somebody who doesn't believe that they have to have these certain metrics met, that's where the challenge is, right? So, I think, what we're doing now is helpful for that. I think, by us continuing to say, hey, you need to hold yourself to a standard, and these are the standards that you should hold yourself to. I definitely think, we're heading in the right direction. I definitely think that, it's something that we are continuing to do. Hey, if you want to hear a little bit more about our standards, reach out to us. You're listening to the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show, where we talk about all things responsibly armed citizens should know. And we're continuing our conversation about firearms. We're talking about how they're viewed socially. We're talking about how the different social aspects of firearm owners, how they're viewed in public, how they're viewed socially. Talked a little bit about mental health. Talked a little bit about training. So, we had finished up our last segment talking about, how do we dispel the mistaken assumption of, I already have my CCH. I already have my concealed carry permit. I believe, this is one thing that we're doing. We're talking about it, right? We're trying to, educate the masses on, what we believe, responsible armed citizens should look like, what we believe responsible armed citizens should, how they should, act in public. If we're going to continue to be ambassadors for this, if we're going to continue to be ambassadors for, responsibly armed citizenry, then there needs to be other people that are helping us do the same thing, right? We need to, come together and say, hey, go ahead and share with your family, share with your friends, talk about what it means to be a responsibly armed citizen and have that productive educational discourse And if you don't know where to get more information about it, then look no further than us. Let us help you. Let us guide you. There's a number of different places that we can send you depending on your listening area where you physically are. You may not be able to come to Apache, but we have plenty of friends. We have plenty of other instructors literally across the globe that we can help point you to. Especially on the state side, there's a huge range master community that of vetted instructors that are just fantastic, salt of the earth type of people. So I don't want to let it go by. I want you guys to come read about me with David Giovanni's book.
Don't get a big head.
Good Curious, written by David Giovanni. His book launch at the Book House tonight at 6 p.m. in Winston-Salem. Please go check that out. David Giovanni, we've already talked about in the past few segments, but fantastic person. And we got some events. We got some stuff that's coming up that we want to take just a couple minutes to tell you guys about. We got Instructor Month. We have our IEP, which is our Instructor Enrichment Program. That's June 7th, 8th, and 9th. We still
next weekend, man.
Next weekend, yep. We still have some seats available for that, so squeeze in quick if you want to. But you're going to be cutting it close. You got a lot of work you need to shore up. You got Range Master Protective Pistol Craft Instructor course, June 19th to 23rd. We got June 28th, we got David Church, one of our guys, teaching his Normalizing the Timer. And July 6th, we have Zach Cox teaching the American Shotgunner. Yeah. So that will be quite interesting. So anything you want to add on that, Tim?
Yeah, I would just say if you're listening to the show and you already are an instructor, a firearms instructor, or you're an aspiring firearms instructor, I would encourage you to look at both of those classes. You can find them both on our website at apachenc.com/events. And take a look at them. The IEP is something that we cooked up, has really popped off this year, and is doing really well, gaining a lot of traction. But that is more of an inside look of where you are as an instructor. So there is a big difference between that and your traditional instructor development course. Generally, the IEP is meant for someone who's already actively teaching. The Range Master Protective Pistol Craft Instructor course is, this is an exceptional opportunity. If you are not a part of the Range Master community, I would encourage you to go, check it out. It is just a great opportunity to learn from Tom Givens, who he's actually going to be spending 5 days with us for this course. I mean, it's a great opportunity. Kind of catapult you in the right direction. Right. So if you are an aspiring firearms trainer, or you already are a firearms trainer, that is definitely the class for you. So 5 days worth of work. And then June 28th, don't worry, we didn't forget about everybody else. David's Normalizing the Timer was been a very popular hit last year. David's just a really cool dude.
He's the happiest person you'll ever meet in your life.
Yeah, we've kind of coined him as the most enthusiastic man in the world.
Yeah,
so
100%.
And go check out his class, his Normalizing the Timer class. He's got a great program he's put together there. And then Zach Cox is teaching him American Shotgunner. He's chosen to do that.
America.
He's chosen to do that on the 4th of July weekend to help celebrate our Independence Day with the shotgun.
Zach and I actually were talking before the show today, and I'm going to be there for that class. And he wants me to do something special to Joe America for that particular class. So
that's going to be great.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Of course,
a lot of fun. Well, a lot of American flags. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's going to be a fantastic class. So talk about all these classes, right? There's got to be some reasons why our listeners. There's got to be some reasons why people just don't jump in classes. Right. So what do you think are some of the social barriers that are keeping people from training?
Man, ultimately, there's so many different factors that can play into this. We're talking about the instructor courses. A lot of the folks, they've taken the NRA basic pistol instructor, and they've got it down.
Yep.
That's all they'll ever need, because all they're ever going to teach is NRA basic pistol. Excuse me, or they've already got the instructor certification for teaching concealed carry in North Carolina. And so they think that that's all they're going to teach. So therefore, they have all the education in the subject that they need, so they're done. And then you have folks that view training as something that's just not necessary. Like what do I need a gun for, or what do I need training for? I know how to use the gun. I go to the range all the time. Right. And if
that one right there, that had a little bit of spice on it. Yeah, I go to the range all the time, and I shot 1,000 rounds last year, or something like that. I'm like, cool. What do you practice at the range? What do you? Oh, well, I hit the steel target. Okay, cool. But what metrics are you holding yourself to?
Right.
What are your times? What does that look like? Why are you wasting your time?
Right.
Sending brass down, with lead down range. Yeah. And I don't want to be negative.
Sure.
I'm glad that you're going out. I'm glad that you're at least practicing, because there are many Americans that don't. They don't at all. But if you're not training with a purpose, if you don't have a specific goal in mind, or if you don't have something that, hey, I at least want to learn a little bit more about whatever XYZ, go and seek more training. Go and do more. The piece that is always really interesting to me is and we've talked about it 1,000 times, there are so many other things that you can be taking courses for that don't involve a firearm at all. Right. All last month we talked about force on force scenarios, right? Different scenario based training, and the thing about that is, like, there are so many different examples. There's so many different things that are going to be more relevant to an individual than necessarily anything with a firearm.
Right.
The use of a firearm is literally your last ditch effort. That is the last thing that you go to. There are so many other things that come before that. Yeah. There's so many other potential, intermediate force options prior to that. Dan Brady, he just had his course, right, on the intermediate force options?
Yeah.
Which I heard, went well. But, there's just so many other things, so many other aspects. Your verbal judo, there are other hand-to-hand skills. There are so many other things that come before you use a gun that people just they forget about, or they don't think about.
Right. And you're talking about, social barriers that keep people from training. I think it's actually easier to get people interested in learning more about firearms training than it is some of the other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like Dan's class, once the students got in there, they realized, this is probably some of the most important information I could ever take from this place. Like, far beyond the gun use and stuff like that. This is really, really good information that they just hadn't learned before.
Right.
But it's harder to get people interested in a class that doesn't involve them standing out on the range and poking holes in paper and going puke. I mean, let's get down to it. I mean, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, especially when you get into a group, a class that's got a bunch of awesome people in it, and you're all out there having a good time. You're meeting new like-minded people. It's just
salt
overall,
of the earth type people.
Yeah, man,
all around.
It really is. It's such an awesome experience, and I think one of the other social barriers that keep people from doing this is they think some people may think that the people that are participating in these classes are, end of the world type people, like just scared to death, or they're out there to play military or something like that.
Right.
It couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing. So I've heard so many times, you guys train, you must be, 40-year-old white dude.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's such a diverse group of people, especially, the people that we train. I mean, you have people from literally every walk of life, every political persuasion, every, different background. Have people who are, inner city kids. We have people who are farm kids. We have people who, were raised around guns, people who weren't. Like, it's such a diverse group, but we all come together. We all have such a fun time, right? Educating and learning and, growing together, that it's such a unique opportunity, right? And, when we're busting down those social barriers, with the commonality of we're learning a skill set together, we're learning a set of skills, we're learning, we're sharing this passion for, self-defense together.
But you got to come out to see it, folks.
You do.
You got to come out to see it.
You do. It's so neat being able to get together and again, talk about these different things and share these different experiences or share these different backgrounds and talk with somebody who grew up polar opposite, has a polar opposite point of view than you do. But it's still relatable. Like you can still relate to them and you can still like share a lot of commonalities, even though you grew up completely different. It's wild. It's so neat being able to sit there and talk with somebody and say, okay, no, I can't relate to that. I can't. Wow. But this is cool. Like we've met on equal ground because, talking about this particular topic, talking about training, talking about firearm ownership, whatever it may be. Because it's equalizing things. It's making things, a little more palatable to communicate. It's wild. It's absolutely something that, you need to just come out and see, come out and talk with, go find somebody, go find another trainer that's out there that, is squared away that can help put you in the right direction. If you guys have any questions on that, I know we've said it ad nauseum, but, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. 336-422-6859, 336-422-6859, or rac@apacheNC.com.
Take your pick.
I'm starting to feel like a used car salesman. I'm definitely not a salesman. That's not my thing. But anyway, So all great things. Tim, we've got about 20 seconds. You got anything you want to add?
No, man. We've been talking about all kinds of different stuff, social barriers and that type of thing. I think it's about time to get into talking about our competency of the month.
Ooh, competency of the month.
Yeah, that changes this month. We get to talk about something completely different.
That's right. It's all new. All right. So let's take a quick break and then let's dive into it in our competency of the month for the month of June. We'll be right back. I think I've seen better days. And welcome back to our final segment of the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show, the RAC Show, where we talk about all things responsibly armed citizens should know. We've been in deep conversation talking about how guns are viewed socially. We talked about mental aspects. We talked about how training is viewed socially. We talked about the social aspects of being a responsibly armed citizen. Talked ad nauseum about all the different training, all the different courses, a lot of the different things that are coming up. Before too much time goes by, we want to reiterate that special announcement because there's just so many good things that are potentially coming from that. Tim,
Gun Curious, written by David Yamani. His book launch will be happening tonight at 6 p.m. at the Book House in Winston-Salem. Don't miss it.
Don't miss it. All right. So we are now going to move on to our final segment. For those of you who are not familiar, this is where we talk about our competency of the month. Competency month at first started as an in-house training aid for our instructor cadre to learn, to grow, to expand a little bit more. And we figured, hey, why don't we share it with you guys? So Tim, without further ado, what is June's competency of the month?
All right. So we're tasking you out, listeners and viewers. Explain the importance of shot placement and the consequences of missing.
Yeah, I hear a whole lot of Kent Hauer in that one.
I do too. That's much more. Consequences.
Consequences. Yeah. So I'm gonna take this one first.
Go for it, man.
All right. So explain the importance of shot placement. It is crucially important. There's ramifications or consequences for not having proper shot placement, for not putting the shot exactly where you intend to put it, where it needs to go, when it needs to go there. And those consequences potentially could be catastrophic. Kent Hauer is one. Kent Hauer is an instructor, Green Mountain Defense up in Pennsylvania. He has this course. It's defensive pistol metrics, where he talks about, he lay out metrics for you as a shooter, kind of blends competition shooting and self-defense type shooting together. And one of his things, and I'm not going to give away his secret sauce, but one of his things he talks about is consequence. What are those consequences? And gets real specific and real in detail of what those consequences are. And nothing will change your mindset more than facing those consequences.
Right.
Or really, we'll say like meditating on what those consequences potentially are. Nothing is more frustrating than, going and having plinking, right? Going into a shooting range, something like that. And then have somebody go, up, haha, there goes Tommy or something like that. And we're like, come on, dude, really grow up. That may be, just some range banner, but that's not the realism in it. That's not like what's actually going to happen. You need to be able to know that you're placing a shot, effectively hitting a target, stopping whatever the threat that you need to stop with that particular firearm when you need to stop it. But in regards to self-defense. Now, if you're not talking about self-defense, if you're talking about just, pleaking on the range, though it's the same. There's still a consequence for missing. There's still a consequence for not placing around where you want it to go.
Right.
Let's say that you're on a square range. You're in your backyard. Right. Let's say you have a berm. Maybe it's a small berm. If you negligently place a shot over that berm for whatever reason, if you negligently place a shot into the air, then what goes up must come down. There's going to be a consequence for that, right? You may not necessarily see the consequence, but you may hear about it on the news.
Right.
How many times have you heard of an errant round or something like that happening, especially more in populous areas usually, right? Is where you tend to hear about that. But there are the tragedies that have come of that because of somebody else's negligence.
Right.
The one thing, when we talk about this, the importance of shot placement, the one thing that really plays in my mind is the church shooting that happened down in Texas,
right,
where this individual went to this church, decided to open fire on a couple of parishioners that were there in the church, and there's this one gentleman who was about 45 feet away, took one well-aimed, well-placed shot, and stopped that person, stopped that threat from harming any more people.
Sure.
You don't just wake up and arise to the moment. You just don't say, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be able to, step up to the challenge and do what I need to do when I need to do it. No, there's hours and hours of practice. There's, money that's been spent going through and making sure that you can place effective rounds on target when you need to do it.
So organized practice. I will reiterate that. Yeah. Going to the range and going off of what knowledge you do have currently without any formal training, it may still be practice, right? And I don't want to deduct from your intentions or anything like that if that's you as the listener. But formal training is what we're really referring to here. I mean, that guy has had a serious background in training, and
he's an instructor.
Yeah, so I mean, he's been doing it for a minute, And if y'all know about the shooting that Frank is referring to, he's talking about the White Settlement church shooting. And if you watch that video, I know it's very, very difficult to watch, but just pause it at the angle when the gentleman stands up to take that shot and look at what he has in front of him. It's an entire congregation in between him and a bad guy.
Right.
Right. If he just started spraying and praying, no pun intended there,
yep.
Then that could have ended very, very badly. Very, very badly. It's a bad situation altogether, but the consequences of him missing that target could have ultimately led to a, right-handed shooter, low left, milking the grip into the church pew just in front of the bad guy.
Yep.
That could have hit somebody.
Yeah,
that he didn't intend to.
And a lot of people say most self-defense incidents happen between that 3 and 5 yard mark, right? So you're talking about distances less than 15 feet. This person knew, right, that he could take an effective hit from a farther distance, and the only way that you can know that is if you've done it, and you've done it a lot to understand you understand your gun, you understand what holdover is, you understand all the intricacies, of not just the firearm but yourself.
Right.
You know, how many times have, hopefully not very many times, but how many times have you gotten to some sort of like a car accident, right? Or had some sort of incident where your adrenaline just goes through the roof.
Right.
You cannot tell me that he did not have some sort of adrenaline happening, during this incident. Do you know yourself good enough that you can still perform under pressure, and put the shot where it needs to go, have the proper shot placement when there's other circumstances, other things that's happening, when you're having that immediate dump, when you're having all of this information that's in front of you. I can't say that everyone can. I'm not saying that, you're not going to be able to perform when you need to, but, there's definitely going to be, you need to have some sort of, realistic idea. You need to have some sort of, physiological, training to where, you at least have an idea of what it is,
right.
and you have some idea of how you're going to overcome that.
It's one of the things that we thought really, really hard on when we were developing the RAC program, the Responsibly Armed Citizen Criterion at Apache, to help facilitate our private sessions that we were teaching, to help provide milestones for our students to meet. Is at the end of each phase, they have to pass some type of pressure testing. And what that means is they have to have some unknown pressure added to their test. And we're not talking about throwing firecrackers at their feet or something like that. It could be something as simple as just adding a timer held in the hands of somebody that they don't know. They're not very familiar with, right? They're not out there all the time. And then they have it in the back of their mind that if I don't pass this, I've got to do this all over again.
Right.
Like I've got to retest all over again. And just that slight bit of pressure causes some of those physiological responses like you were talking about.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times we've walked up to one of those shooters that we've known very well, and we've seen them shoot, and they're going to pass this with ease. And when you get up there and get ready to time them, you see their hands start to shake, and it's like, I'm down. It's all right.
Nerves,
it's
man.
just me, and but you're intimidating. Oh gosh, here we go again.
Intimidating.
But I think that's really, really important. Just because you can go to the range and you can poke holes in paper and you say, good job, take the paper home and then put it on your refrigerator or something like that and celebrate later. That's not the same thing,
Right.
And honestly, me standing next to you with a timer is not the same thing as the pressure that gentleman had on him at the White Settlement Church shooting.
Yep.
It's not the same thing, but it's a step in that direction.
Right.
There's competition. Competition has different pressure testing, right? There's all kinds of pressure involved in that, right? Those can all be useful ways to kind of to put your skills out there on the line and say, well, really, how well do I actually do this?
Right.
Well, outside of the comfort of my home range, outside of the comfort of my standards and my stipulations, right? Walking into an environment that's completely new to you and shooting a drill that is completely foreign to you, that's where you find out where your skills are.
Yep. And some of the most significant moments of growth as a self-defense advocate, right? As a training, have always been where I have gone and visited a range where I have known nothing about it, where I'm taking a course from an instructor I know very little about, in a state that it may be my first time visiting that state. I mean, it's all these unknowns, but the common language is still there. Unload, choke clear, the whole 9 yards, place X amount of, shots on a particular target in X amount of time. You're able to, do that. You're able to work on whatever those, skill sets that, whatever class that you're trying to take or that you're taking. But all those unknowns at first, I tell you what, every time I step on line, especially that very first time being on that range, it's like, all right, nerves, all right, all this, I don't know how this is going to go. I have all this self-doubt, all this deprecating self-talk and things like that. But, it's always a comforting feeling after you've performed and you've performed well,
right?
That you're like, I got this.
Yeah.
Then you start to calm down a little bit. But always at first, you always have those, instant, first jitters, and you're like, oh, I don't know about it. Or I remember the first time going and traveling with you, Tim. It was like, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know if I want to be able to meet up with everybody else. And it turned out great, but still. All right, Tim, this has been fantastic. We got about 10 seconds. You got anything else you want to throw out at anybody?
No, man, go seek out good training. Check us out at ApacheNC.com, and we will see you guys next week.
We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.